time. I appreciate you. Y'all give yourselves a hand for being out here. We are out in the neighborhood. We got puppies out here. Like way back in the day, that politicians would get in the middle of a town hall or middle of a town and just get up on a soapbox and just start talking. So we wanted to do something kind of like that, but without going downtown, just being in the neighborhood. So I want to thank y'all for being here and asking some questions. We've already had some really, really good things happen this morning with some of the neighbors. One of our volunteers even got a free car in that trip. That's amazing. That's when people really want to support you, when they start making sure your people have vehicles. So I'm gonna start it off, and if you guys got any questions or anything like that, make sure to ask me. And for those that are watching online, I don't know which camera I should be looking at. I look at this. If you're watching online, you have any questions, especially if you're on Facebook, I'm going to be monitoring that as well. So if you have some Facebook questions, just let me know. Hopefully we can get to that as well. Once again, my name is Dewayne Washington, Dewayne T. Washington, running for mayor here of the city of Arlington. And to start off with, most people would ask me the question is, why would you do that? Why would you be running for the city of Arlington? Why would you be running for mayor? And why should we vote for you, right? So that's probably the biggest questions. And I will say this, that whenever you see someone like me running for city office, you should really take note. Not saying that that person is the best or whatever out there. The reason I'm saying you should take note is people like me usually don't run for city office. People like me are usually at homeless shelters helping out, at prisons helping out, as volunteer of the year in youth prisons, literally on the ground taking care of stuff. We're not box checkers. We're not people to say, well, I've got to sit on this committee to say I sat on this committee, or I need to do this so I can check the box so that when I run it looks good. I'm not one of those types of people, and people around me know me, and they know that to be the truth. And so when you find someone like me running, that means that something is wrong, because usually we would just continue to do what we do. I work with communities and governments and children around the world. We would continue to do that. But when we look at the city that I live in, Arlington, Texas, is beginning to do things similar to a third world country. For example, matter of fact, some of the governments that we put down so vehemently don't do the things that we do. Some of them still would not take somebody's individual home to be able to do something like build a stadium, or take taxpayers' dollars. I don't know if you've seen this lately. Take taxpayers' dollars, $24 million, to build a golf course. It's just not something that it just doesn't even, from an optics perspective. Hey, how you doing? From an optics perspective, it doesn't even look good, right? It just doesn't look good. It's kind of like the other day when we had Snowmageddon. You had all of these houses. There were no water, no electric, no heat, kids freezing, and so we're relocating kids from one area to another, trying to get them warm. And across the street is the stadium lit up like a Christmas tree. It just doesn't look good, right? It's not good optics. And at the end of the day, I won't speak too much on this. There's a couple of different reasons that happen, but from a city management perspective, we just got to do better with our citizens. And so that's why you hear me talk about families over facilities. I think we've done a great job at building world-class facilities. I think we would all agree on that. We've got some, phenomenal buildings. We've got stadiums that are world-class, and that's great. Nothing wrong with that theoretically. But once again, the way we've done it. I have no problem with a company coming in saying that, hey, I want to buy this plot of land, I want to build this building, and I want to be able to give back to the city, whether it's jobs or whatever it is. I have no problem with that. But I do have a problem when you come in and say, hey, I want to build on this particular piece of land. There's people living there. Could you condemn their houses and take it for me, and so I can build there? And by the way, can you pick up half the cost of building my company? At the end of the day, it's citizens that have to do that. And I think that we need to be very careful whenever we do stuff like that, eminent domain or those types of partnerships. We really got to be careful with. So why am I running? It's to be able to make sure that we get on track, that we don't do things such as that. Our city is, the debt's tripled in recent years. Well, whenever your debt's tripled, man, what's your name?
Sherry.
Sherry. Let me ask you something. What would it do to your household if all of a sudden all the bills went up by a factor of 3?
Oh my gosh.
Right. Oh my gosh. Right. Right. Oh my gosh. That's what would happen. And so we're seeing that in our city. Our debt's tripled. And so we have a whole lot of oh my goshes. We have people now, because their taxes have gone up in their home, can't afford to stay there. We've got people who own a home and they rent it out. And because now there's not enough room to make money, because their cost on that house went up so high that they cannot make money on that renter anymore. So they got to kick the renter out and sell the house, right? Same net result. So we've got to do smarter. We got to do better. We've got to have a more fiscally responsible government. That means that we're just not going spending $1 billion of taxpayers' money just because, right? You'll hear a lot of people say, well, we need economic development. Have y'all heard that? That makes sense, doesn't it? Till you think about it, right? Because they'll say, we need jobs. You'll hear politicians say that all the time. We need to bring in jobs. We need to bring in jobs. Question. What's your name, ma'am? Kim. Kim, are you a lawyer? Okay. So if a law office moves across the street from you and they start offering jobs for lawyers, you eligible for that?
No.
It's not about jobs. It's about making sure people are eligible to be able to get whatever job it is. I personally don't care where you work. I don't care if you work for a company in China. Bring the yen back to Arlington. If you work for a company in London, that's fine. Bring that pound back to Arlington. And so what happens is that politicians get up and say, we need to bring in economic development. Okay? We all live in Arlington for the most part. Okay? What's the last thing they told us economic development on?
The golf course.
No, before the golf course. I'm sorry, you're right. Remember the stadium?
Which one?
Yeah, right. Which one? Okay. We're going to bring in economic development because we're bringing in this $1 billion stadium. It made sense to some people. You know, we have something we call BS Mountain. We put that on the top of BS Mountain. We're like, just wait. Watch this. Watch what happens, right? We was at the stadium the other day. I asked every worker I seen, where do they live? Not in Arlington. When you look at the executive management of the Cowboys. Now, I'm not coming down on the Cowboys. I think that that's God's team. It's the best team in history, and I know some people not going to vote for me because I like the Cowboys. I like the Cowboys. It is what it is. Love them to death. I don't care who they playing. I'm going to vote for them. If they were playing the 12 disciples, I'm going to vote. I'm going for the Cowboys. Like, hit Peter low. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I love the Cowboys. So this is not a slide against the Cowboys at all. But when you look at their executive management, they don't live in Arlington. They built a whole nother thing up in North Dallas because where most of them live. And that's not a problem for them. But remember, they told us it's supposed to bring jobs. What jobs? It's supposed to bring economic development. If that were true, here's what I said then. If that was so true, we would be able to look back in Irving and see where the Cowboy Stadium was before and see all kind of economic development around it.
That's true.
You don't see that. You never see that. What do you see? A big hole and nothing around it. So it sounds good for people to say, we're going to bring in economic development. What we need to do is economic empowerment. There's a difference. So for example, let's take the east side of Arlington. It needs some help. We can all agree it needs some help. What most politicians will do is say, we want to bring in these developers from outside to come in and build this area up. What happens there? Two things. Number one, the people who get a chance to be able to recognize and realize the profit for that, usually are not in Arlington. They're developers from everywhere else. And guess what happens to the people that are there? A lot of times they're moved out to somewhere else. I've lived in some of those places in America where quote unquote economic development is coming in to move us out. Why don't we start investing? Hey, how you doing? Why don't we start investing in the people who are there in that area? For those people that want to start businesses in their own cities, in the own part of their own town, and be able to, if you want to offer some quote unquote tax breaks or some type of an assistance, give it to those people, right? And we start young. We start like this young. What's your name? I can't hear.
Brielle.
Brielle. Oh, that's a beautiful name. Brielle. We start with Brielle's age, training them and teaching them, you know, how to be great citizens, how to even be great business people, We start at that age so that when they get older, they can be able to take care of things in their own area instead of us bringing in people from everywhere else. One of the companies that built the newest stadium is not from here. They're in Maryland. Now, understand this. Do I have a problem with other people building stadiums? No. Do I have a problem with us paying for something that we cannot use? Yes, I do. I have an issue with that. And on top of that, we're talking about economic development, and literally you bring people from outside the state to be able to bring the economic development to them. Period. So that's why I'm running. Let me pause. Any questions for me before because I can, I'm a preacher. I can talk all day. You know what I'm saying? I know we got limited time. So you might say, well, what qualifies you to be able to run? What issues and problems do you want to be able to deal with, right? I get that question all the time. You hear me talk a lot about debt. It's not sexy. It's not one of those things you get up and you dance about. Oh, let's dance about our debt. It's our debt. No, people don't do that. We actually do. For those that are watching, we actually do have a song out, right? A whole music video. And I think it is pretty cool how we talk about, our debt and that kind of thing. So if you haven't seen that, go watch that. It's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, when we go knock on doors, the average person is not talking about the debt of the city. Oh man, our city's in debt. That's not what they're talking about. But they are talking about that tax rate that's going up on their house and squeezing them. They are talking about that. They are talking about these streets that aren't, look at these streets right here that aren't being fixed. They're talking about that, okay? They talk about crime, okay? Now let's put all of that together, all right? Once again, you just said if your expenses tripled, your debt tripled, it'd be an oh my situation. Here's the thing, that leaves you less money to deal with other things. Brielle says, Mom, I want to go to, is this your daughter?
No, she's my great niece.
Your great niece? Yes. Okay, so she says, great auntie, I want you to take me to Disney World. Well, if your debt's high, can't do it. If you're debt free, got a little money in the bank, when you want to go. It's not even, and first of all, assuming you have the will to take them, right? The free capital to be able to do something nice. When we don't have that, you can't do that. It starts affecting things like fixing the streets. And people, let's talk about crime. Well, Dewayne, how does the debt go into crime? Two ways. What is most cities' response to high crime? What do most cities do when they see their crime rate go up? What do y'all think?
More police.
More police. Because we want to stay safe. More police. If that was to work, then New York will be the safest place in the world. Because they spend over $10 billion on their police force. $10 billion. And they're asking for more. Hiring more police to solve a crime problem is like hiring a bunch of nurses to solve cancer. This cancer rate's going up. Let's go hire some more nurses. It's not even fair to expect police to bring down crime. Their job is to respond to crime. Their job is to go and arrest that criminal. It's not to stop that guy from becoming a criminal to begin with. That's not their job. Their job is when you call 911, when your house is being broken into, that they come out and they apprehend that guy that's breaking in your house. It's the city's responsibility to make sure the guy doesn't break in your house to begin with. Now, how does that come together? You'll find that whenever you have economic depressed people, all of a sudden crime goes up. Why? Because people are trying to eat. But all these drug dealers over here, because they're trying to feed their family. They don't know anybody else to do it, right? So we start giving people options and stop taking away their options, you'll find that crime goes down. When you start dealing with individuals, I'm going to say specifically young boys, young males, because that's what we've done all over the world, you'll see that changing their mindset brings down crime. You may say, Dewayne, well, how does that happen? I want you to think about something. 9/11. All the way up to just a couple weeks ago, guys shooting up the parlors in Atlanta. 2 days ago, somebody went and shot up 100 people. Did y'all see that? And in between those two have been 850 mass shootings this month across the country. 850. Guess what they all have in common outside of a gun, right? Here's a. There you go. Out of control males. At the core of all of them is an out of control male. And so whenever you start looking at the issue of out of control males and how to be able to solve that problem, you bring that down, you reduce crime. And you may say, well, you can't stop somebody from being a criminal. Let me tell you something. I did it in prison. I was a volunteer of the year in youth prisons. We actually took young people who are already in prison and changed them around. Forget just, somebody we're talking about someone who has literally been caught for murder, caught for breaking in somebody's house, caught for selling drugs, and changed their mindset. Now, of course, we've been able to do that around the planet through men that haven't done anything wrong, right? Working with young men to be able to bring that down, right? So we've been able to do that successfully. But that is how you go. That is what you do. You say, how do we affect these young people now so they don't become criminals? Instead of just saying, hire more police. When you look at some of the safest cities in America, Plano being one. I just got through speaking with the mayor of Plano. They spend, most cities, of this size, Arlington being one, when they look at, crime as a police issue, start spending over half of the operating budget on police. And that's what we do here. Over half of our operating budget. So half of your taxes are going specifically to pay for police. Instead of saying, why don't we take a piece of that and spend it on where the problem really is so that we don't need so many police to begin with? Point blank. And so when you see cities that are safer, they have a different approach to that. First of all, less of the operating budget is used on it, but it's not an on-purpose thing there. They integrate the police with society, and they spend money in areas that reduce crime to begin with so that you stay lean and you don't need all of that to start off with, period. And so it's a systematic approach to making the city better, but it's the same thing. You invest back in the people, right? Instead of saying we want to build buildings, we want to build families. We want to build people. People will build a city. Buildings don't build a city. People do, right? So if we start having a focus back on the people, removing debt so they'll be able to survive, right? Investing in families so that we'll be able to bring down crime rates, right? Reducing our debt so that it's not such a burden on you from a tax perspective so that we can do things such as fix the streets. Because at the end of the day, it takes money to fix the streets. Yes, sir.
I think it starts with education, educating the young people and the adults to help them with the city, help them get a better job so that they can afford
There you go.
the higher.
What's your name, sir?
Don.
Don, if y'all didn't hear Don speaking, he said, I think it starts with education. And you hit the nail on the head. Now, here's the thing. Where do you think our schools rank right now in the state of Texas?
Low.
Give me a number. Top 10?
28.
You said 28? You said 50? Okay, who else got another? 36? Sound like Powerball numbers. 1, 72, 530. You know what? If I looked at the top 10, now mind you, Arlington is number 7 as far as the number of people in the city from the state of Texas, right? So you got Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio. Those cities are large, but it's number 7, okay? So keep that in mind. If I look at the top 10, we're not there. If I look at the top 50, we're not there. If I looked at the top 100, guess what? Still not there. If I looked at the top 200, now we're getting close, but we're still not there. If I look at the top 300, we're still not there. We're not even in the top 300 school districts in the state of Texas. That's the canary in the coal mine. Remember, we talk about education. Those little bitty ones will be big ones at some point. And if we didn't get education into them young, we're going to have an issue when they get older. But I'm here to tell you, I don't believe, and this is from someone who's in a classroom regularly, every week, as a matter of fact, right? I do not believe that the problem, or the 100% of the problem, is the school. I think that the problem shows up at school. If you have to worry about what you're going to eat or if you're going to eat, you're not going to be productive when you get to school. If you've got to worry about we may not have a place to stay, you're not going to be productive when you get to school. If there's no one at the house that is teaching you how to be a proper gentleman or how to be a proper lady, you're not going to be productive when you get to school. And you see these issues and problems show up at school. And a lot of problems that we see in school districts are really just a reaction to what showed up. So you'll find that we all do statistics on kids at risk. In Arlington, somewhere around 50%. Okay? Now here's the kicker. Almost that same percentage, their families are economically struggling. Thanks. And so it's not necessarily an education issue, even though it shows up in education. Math is math, as long as they don't start that Common Core stuff. In general, math is math. Reading is reading. An R is still an R, okay? But what has changed is the dynamics that kids show up with, the issues and problems that they show up with. So here we are in the richest country that has ever existed on the face of the planet, and we literally have people that don't know if they can eat in a suburb. Think about that. We're in the richest country that has ever existed on the face of the planet, and we have people that, if you look at the state of Texas, not my number, look at Rice's number. What do you think the graduation rate is for the state of Texas? And people, when you hear, let me just tell you, when you hear graduation rates, you're not usually hearing the actual graduation rate. You're hearing how many 12th graders start and finish. I'm saying how many kindergartners start and actually graduate from high school. What do you think that number is?
68.
Say 68%. What else?
40%.
40%, lower than that.
I say 25.
33%. That's the graduation rate. When we work with schools and they try to, do a different graduation rate, we always call them on it. They're like, our graduation rate is 95%. How is your graduation rate 95% when your freshman class is twice the size of your senior class consistently? Half of them are dropping out before they get to be a senior. But we don't want to count that because it doesn't look good. But let me tell you something. They don't disappear. They're still there in your city. And if we're not doing something to be able to rectify that situation, it's going to cause problems like crime. I volunteered in some of the schools where our target schools where they're looking at kids, they're looking at their reading scores, they're looking at this and trying to figure out, based on the educational skills here, based on the abilities of this kid here, this child, we know if we need to build a prison space for them or not. And I can tell you with a surety that the state of Texas has no shortage of prison space for you. I can tell you because I'm there. I volunteer there. So imagine this. And people say, well, it's going to cost money. People didn't say that when we put up a $500 million stadium. That cost a lot more. Imagine how much it costs to be able to educate a child properly or to be able to encourage a child properly versus what it costs to incarcerate a child properly. Think about those two prices. Think about the family trees that each one of those impact. So you want to know why I'm running? I'm running to change that. Now, you have a lot of choice in this race, and it's great. I love it when you have choice. Check everybody. And I want you to look for two things. Number one, I want you to look for who has the will to do something different, the skill to do something different, the strategies and the plan. Now, I'm not just standing up here and saying, you need to like me, and you should vote for me because you like me. I'm saying, vote for me so that you can vote for these strategies and plans that we've already put some in place around the world to be able to change the trajectory of Arlington, period. Now, there are some that are running that will say, hey, I want to keep it the same. By God, if you believe in that, go do that. Right? If that's your thing, knock it out. I personally don't believe it's going in the right direction. Period. I think less people are going to be able to live out their dream in the dream city than before. I think less people. One of the candidates said, just compare your life. Aren't you better off now than you were 6 years ago? I'm saying the same thing. Go check your tax bill and ask yourself, am I in a better situation now than I was 6 years ago? Do I feel more optimistic about the city than I felt 6 years ago? Or do I feel like we're spending money on things that we shouldn't spend money on? Now, if you believe the latter, you got plenty of options. If you believe, or the former, you got plenty of options. If you believe the latter, you only got, there's not a whole lot of option there, right? So I want you to take a look at everybody. Look at who has the number one, the plans and strategies. who has the will to be able to change things, the ability to change things, the ability to reach across any aisle and bring good ideas to the table, right? So that we can all utilize and be able to live the dream together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions before we get out of here?
Do you have any control over the like signal lights, like the blinking left turn on the yellow? It is so dangerous.
You know what? And
Right on red. People don't stop when
The-
they're turning right. I got the right of way. No, you don't.
it,
I have a green light. I have the right of way.
there's two issues associated with that. One, and I'm with you with that blinking yellow, because I mean, when it first came out, like I almost got plummeted, because I didn't realize, because when you see that blinking yellow, when you see an arrow, that arrow means go. Hey, how you doing? And so we immediately want to go. And I literally, when that happened, I started reaching out to see if we could stop that. Now, come to find out, it's a nationwide thing. I don't know who. This is why you put good people in government, because bad people will just start making deals, right? I'm like, who thought it was a good idea? I always follow the money. Because remember, they had to change all the stuff out, and somebody had to create those lights. So that light that's been there for 30 years, all of a sudden now we need a new one, right? Follow the money. Now, to say specifically from a mayoral perspective, right? Not a lot of oversight in that particular piece, right? But let's get back more on it so we can find out how to be able to change that in the future. Because I really, quite honestly, I believe it's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's pointless because it does the same thing that a green light does, right? The non-arrow, right? It does the exact same thing. So I don't know why we even decided to go with that, but once again, follow the money. Any other questions?
There are some signal lights. It says left turn on green arrow only.
Right.
Then you got others that
It's
turn
confusing.
left on blinking yellow.
It's like
It's really, really dangerous.
it's like signage at the airport, right? Now I'm a data guy. I come from the area of data, which is one of the reasons why we were talking about red light cameras, and thankfully we were able to get that repealed and out of here. Because on one end they would say, oh, it makes cities safer, and it really doesn't. It actually causes more accidents than anything else, because people are trying to stop because it's a camera there and somebody comes and hits them in the back, so it's not making people safer at the end of the day, right? Not saying people should just go around running red lights. It's just at the end of the day, that data did not support the narrative. And truth be told, it was just about companies making money. Not even companies in Texas. I don't know if you realize that, but like whenever you were to do that whole process is outsourced to another company in another state. That's why your money would go out of state. And so that company is making out like a bandit, but they're actually paid by the city, different cities around Texas, to be able to render that service. So they're like double dipping. But at the same time, it doesn't do anything good for the citizens of, in this case, citizens of Arlington, or the citizens of Texas. So same type of thing. Any other questions before we get out of here? You good? You look like you got a question in your mind somewhere.
She's a teacher.
You a
I'm a
teacher?
retired teacher.
Okay. Okay.
She's homeschooled.
You homeschool? I homeschooled all four of my kids. Well, my wife homeschooled all four of our kids. Let me be honest with that. So, how long did you teach? I'm just checking online to see if we have any questions.
Taught for 32 years.
32 years. What difference did you see over 32 years? When did you stop teaching?
2013.
2013. So that's back to you. You started in 80. Yeah, okay. 81. Okay.
Yeah.
What are the differences between when you started and when you stopped?
Wow, a bunch. Technology,
Okay.
definitely technology.
Kids are different.
Kids are different.
Kids are way different. The
Different.
families are different. Families are
Family
different.
dynamic.
Family dynamics different. Okay.
Yeah.
The kids different.
The kids, I was finding as time went on the lack of respect, and it's not just the kids, but also the parents' lack of respect for the educational institution in general, the teachers, and I'm fine with sticking up for your kid, but the teachers aren't necessarily out to get your kid. We're
Right.
trying to teach. We're trying to teach everybody.
So here's what I've noticed in school. You tell me if I'm out of line, if this is right. But here's what I've noticed over the years, is that you have the teacher, and we dealt with all levels of administration, from the individual teacher in the classroom to the superintendent. So here's what I've noticed, is that the teachers in general have less support from all sides of the house. So back in the day, you had a really, really strong parent-teacher association. You had strong support from, when I was in school, I would rather get in trouble and go to the principal's office and get pops than for you to call my mama. Because if you called my mom, she's going to come up here and kill me in front of everybody. Right? And nowadays, I see teachers not wanting to call the mom because they're just going to get cussed out. There's no support there. And then not a lot of
PTA system too back then.
strong PTA back then, right?
Because I taught school for 43 years. And
Wow.
So you had more parents that were on board with teachers.
More
And you
parents
had a
on
lot of,
board.
You had a lot of principals that really cared about students.
So and I will say this, that I've dealt with a lot of school districts. I've dealt with a lot of principals. One of the things that I was appalled by is that I met a lot of administrators that didn't really care too much about kids one way or another. And it began to show in those different areas. Now, so here's what we have. Here's an issue. Because you have the teacher in there who may care a whole lot, no support from the top, no support from the administration, no support from the majority of the parents, that begins to weigh on you. I'm watching three things happen. I'm watching seasoned teachers say, you know what, I'm retiring. Okay? I'm watching new teachers come in. I have a good friend of mine, okay? And he was getting trained to go and be a school teacher. And I told him this. I said, I give you 2 years tops. He said, why do you say that? I said, because you care too much about children. 2 years tops. He said, that's why I'm doing it. I said, watch. He didn't last an entire year. One semester, he's out of there. I can't do this. So I see new teachers that have the zeal and passion come into the area and then leave because they say, I don't want to do this for 30 years. And then I see people who would be great teachers not entering into the whole thing. Yeah, I'm not doing this. Yeah, I'm not going to do this.
And we had great teachers, I mean, terrific teachers, great with the kids, but because of the salaries, they moved out of the classroom. They stayed with the school districts, but they went to principalships or whatever.
Yeah.
And lost that day to day, hour to hour.
In touch with the kids.
Right.
Okay.
And they are people that are great with kids and mentors to kids, but because of the salary, they have
Right.
a family support. They have to move out of the classroom to provide.
Now, I want y'all to think about this, right? Remember, I told you that the issue in a lot of cases is not the school, it just shows up at the school. Kids, disrespect. Parents, disrespect. Remember, we're looking at generations of the same issue, right? Not a situation that started at the school. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the only place we can technically fix it, but not started at the school, but shows up at the school, right? And so we see these issues and problems, believe it or not, systemic issues that are social issues that we can help solve, but they're showing up at school. And because of that, it's causing issues at school. We actually had some schools with F ratings. I haven't seen a school with an F rating. Now, just to let you know before I get out of here, we are in the top 400. Let's feel good about that.
What, 425?
We're in the top 400. If you look at the list of here's the top 400 school districts in the state of Texas, we made the list. I'm not even going to tell you where we made it, but I just feel good at least we made the top 400.
You know what? A lot of it starts with some of the parents. They don't have the education or anything to teach the kids to show respect.
Right.
Because they didn't get it when they were a kid.
Exactly.
So they can't show it.
Passes it down.
That's why we've got to come in and help that. Right? We can say, oh, it's not our problem. And all. It is our problem. It shows up at school. It is our problem. Not too long ago, they had an 18-year-old kid go into a convenience store and shoot and kill a guy Shot him 8 times, point blank. 8 times. And then when he couldn't get into the register, he decided just to take some smokes and run. Whenever we look at our society and say, those kids are not our problem, that's not our issue and situation, they will show up and become your problem. I promise you that. So either we take time, effort, money, whatever it takes to be able to reach people while they're young, or we'll just deal with the aftermath when they grow up, period. And it takes a whole lot more time, effort, and money at that point. Let's not wait till they make the front page for killing somebody. Why don't we start dealing with them when they're young? We already know where they are. We already know who's at risk. We already know that. So instead of building another building, why don't we start building some families? Good deal? Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all. I'm Dewayne T. Washington, running for mayor here in the city of Arlington. I want to thank y'all for taking time to listen. If you want to get to know me better, just WashingtonForArlington.com. That's spelled out WashingtonForArlington.com. You can contact me. We can talk about anything, whether we agree or disagree. I do believe that you have a right to be able to voice your opinion here in the city of Arlington. It's not about whether I agree with it or not. It's about the fact that your voice is valid. Your voice is valid. There may be some people say, you know what, Dewayne, I want to continue to build buildings. I want to make it the entertainment capital of the world. And I'm fine, we can talk about that. But I'm also going to show you some other entertainment capitals of the world, you know, that when I go there, it's a great place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. And we talk to people who live there, they say this is the worst place ever, right? There's a city I want to say, but I ain't going to say it out loud because I don't want to put them down like that. But every time I go to the city and I talk to people who live there, they all hate the city. They all hate it. I ain't gonna say it out loud. I ain't gonna say it. But thank y'all, and thank you once again for being there online. We appreciate you. Love y'all. Once again, Washington for Arlington. April 19th is early voting, and the actual vote takes place on May 1st. So hopefully we'll see you there at the polls, and God willing, I'll be your next mayor of the city of Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, sir, good.